This is the CreaseCast.
Welcome to an emergency episode of the CreaseCast, episode number 103. I am Cody Stevenson. With me, as always, is my co-host, the darling Lachlan Irvine.
Hi, I'm in hell.
We both had really shitty days at work, and in the midst of our shitty days at work, depending on where you side on the ledger, or if you're like a family member of Tanner Pearson, this news might have made your day even worse, or it might have made your day really good. For Lachlan and I, as you know, having listened to all available episodes of the CreaseCast on your favorite podcast platform, we are Team Process. We believe in smart process. We believe in having a plan. We believe in doing things that make sense and service your plan to create an NHL contender that will compete for cups on a year-to-year basis. The Vancouver Canucks today, 4 days shy of the 2021 trade deadline, elected to re-sign expiring UFA Tanner Pearson to a 3-year, $3.25 million contract with no trade protection on the second and third year. Lachlan, where were you when the earth stood still?
Well, I remember it like it was any other day. I woken up, I had a spring in my step, a song in my heart. I'm having a great day. And then, work is work, what have you. And then actually, you text me because we were gonna. If you don't follow us religiously, we were gonna record an off the post episode for our Patreon listeners today, which is like our show where we just talk about random stuff especially because there's no Canucks stuff going on right now. Which you should go check out for $5 a month. You get off the post episodes every week. But I get a DM from Cody, and he's like, "So we're not going to be doing no off the post today." I'm thinking, and I was like, "Oh my god, what happened?" Like I'm thinking something super wrong, and then I see the little TSN and Sportsnet icons pop up on my notifications, and I'm just like, "Oh no!" Like, what have they done? What have they done now? And you see the Tanner Pearson thing, and first of all, I will say I was a little bit relieved at first because I was like, oh, because I thought something bad had happened with when you consider all the COVID stuff we've been talking about for like the last couple of weeks. My immediate thought when I saw it was like, oh my god, something terrible happened, right? Mm-hmm. And so for the first couple seconds, I'm just relieved that it's nothing like serious, real life serious,
like it's or something. It's
right.
Grand scheme, big picture, it's really not anything worth getting chuffed about, but
but we're going to anyway. Because and then I see the Tanner Pearson thing. I see the term, I see the money, and I'm at a loss. Again, what are you doing? I have so many questions. The first of which is why? Why are you doing this?
We'll take this piece by piece. So first off, what are your thoughts on Tanner Pearson as a player? Because if I was to start, I would say Tanner Pearson is a perfectly serviceable middle to bottom six forward, given his current age and likely trajectory. He had a very up year last year. He had 45 points. 9 of them came via empty netters. This year, he hasn't been nearly as lucky. He's really struggled to produce. He hasn't really found any chemistry with Bo Horvat. He's most common center. Looking forward, he's the kind of guy on like a cheap ticket you would want in your bottom six because he has proven that he does have the wheels and the offensive creativity to actually play in a second line role with the appropriate line mates. But this signing, for the dollar value that it's at, and given where the Canucks cap structure looks like, I don't know if I would have personally signed it, but Lachlan, your thoughts on Tanner Pearson, the player?
Tanner Pearson, the player, is a great player. I really like what he brings to the Canucks, and I mean, I see why they would want to bring him back. You talk about Bo Horvat, like his chemistry with Bo Horvat, and just how much success he had over like the last year and a bit in Vancouver prior to this season, he looked really good. It really looked like they found a great fit for the short, at least for the short term.
Yeah.
And while they were, or at the very least, let's say you decide where this season is not so much of a wash and you're much more in the playoff hunt, then you can kind of maybe look at it and be like, well, okay, this is a playoff team. It makes sense that we would keep somebody around who's been a key contributor, who's been a key part of that, the reason why we're a playoff team right now. But this is not a team in the playoffs. This is not a team that should be like giving out these hefty contracts to a team that has one playoff year to its name, and frankly and let's not kid ourselves, they were out of the playoffs and then got in because of play-in round BS. If this had been a normal year, there's no telling if they would have made it. You can guess, you can have your guesses, but concrete evidence would suggest that no, they were still on the outside looking in a little bit. And now you're telling me that you want to sign Tanner Pearson with all of the cap crunch you are already in. You want to give him another 3 years at $3.25 million. I think we said on the 2 episodes ago, because we talked about a potential extension, what we might be willing to do. I think both of us said somewhere in the ballpark of like, okay, if it's like 2 years, we can maybe stomach at most like 3, like a flat 3. If it's 2 years, if he has to go to longer, like a 3-year contract, then it better come down to at least like into like 1.5 to 2. It better not come higher than that.
Agreed.
And instead,
we got the best of both worlds. We got term and dollar,
and term and a lot of cap
and trade protection. So like honestly, big shout out to Tanner Pearson's agent, because he just bent Jim Benning and that management group over the fucking barrel, man. Like
top shelf sports management.
Good job. That is, if I'm a player, I am signing with those guys as soon as possible, and I'm saying get me on the Canucks, because I can apparently get whatever the fuck I want with that management group.
Now, let me say, you might be giving too much credit to the agent, because, I mean, what agent hasn't, like, gotten whatever they wanted from Jim Benning in the last 7 years?
See our discussion from our last episode about Travis Hamonic and his NMC.
I mean, that one's a bit different. That one's a different story. I'm just making a little joke. But
okay. Aside from him, the player, the Canucks are currently poised to only have $17 million in cap space, and that's with Ferland and Beagle on LTIR. I mean, just by the way things look, it doesn't seem like Ferland's going to come back, which is a shame. So there is that like $3.5 million worth of flex.
And Jay Beagle is a new thing. We have apparently, like, this is, I was listening to, I think both of you and I were both listening to Donnie and Dolly on Check News, the new program, and they were talking about that apparently Jay Beagle's injury might be career threatening, which is shocking because we don't even know what it is. We have no idea what he's injured, why he's out of the lineup. We just know he's hurt. And to hear that this was only on Tuesday, I think, so only a couple days ago. It turned out that he might have like a career-ending injury, which would be awful for him. The Canucks, in a way, lucky just because that would give them cap room that they wouldn't have had before. But still not good that it would have to come at that kind of expense of a player's career ending, and obviously that's not a guarantee. He might be healthy enough to come back, depending on what it is. Again, no idea. But they're in a lot of trouble. They're in a lot of trouble.
They've allocated obviously with the Demko signing too. Like they've allocated a lot of their cap already, but they've still yet to sign like a bona fide third line center. Like say Beagle is gone. I don't know if the coach has really like trusted Adam Gaudette with third line or fourth line center responsibilities. Like he obviously
Travis Boyd, maybe?
Steered away from. But here's the thing: say the season does resume, some of these guys are going to come off of LTIR because it's been like 2 months since they went on. You're going to have to put people on waivers. So guys like Travis Boyd or Jimmy Vesey. They might be the odd man out that go on waivers, or Zach McEwen. Like, you know what I mean? So I almost want to say they're just stopgaps, like Howard as well. Like they're all just guys basically just here to kill time. I can't imagine they're going to be bringing them back. I think just the way the cap's shaking out. Yeah, next season they have to sign Pettersson, Quinn Hughes. They need to completely shake up their defensive group because they're losing Edler and probably Jordy Ben and possibly Travis Hamonic as well. Unless, I mean, there's still 4 days left until the trade deadline, so maybe Jim's got another extension up his sleeve. But they have nothing to work with, basically, after they sign Pettersson and Hughes to their what's likely going to be very expensive bridge deals. I saw on Twitter some people were like, they're going to get bridge terms of $5 to $6 million, and I'm like, what players are you watching that you think they're going to take hometown discounts on a team that throws money and extensions and no movement clauses at anyone over the age of 28? You know what I mean?
And also, more importantly, what team of the other 30 group of the other 31 teams wouldn't say, "Oh, we only have to offer like more than $7 million on an offer sheet to get Pettersson or Hughes done." So like that's, which I believe is also how it factors in how much you have to compensate them if the team that you take them from. So the smaller amount you're the smaller amount you leave for those players, the much easier it is for another team to potentially pick them up for a lot less value than you get. Like this is baffling. Okay.
Or they could completely bend them over they could completely screw them over in the sense that someone could offer sheet Elias Pettersson a 10-year, $11.75 million contract. Like Detroit, for example, offer sheets him that. Because they
can only offer 8, but yeah.
Sorry, 8 at 11.5 or whatever it is. The Canucks would have to sign it. They would have to agree. And then all of a sudden you have $6 million left to try and work Quinn Hughes to a deal. Like, that's a disaster waiting to happen if it happens.
And then maybe some other team goes, "Okay, we're going to do the same thing.
We're going to do the exact same thing with Quinn Hughes."
No.
And then if they sign them, then they have to shed every asset imaginable to get rid of Ericsson's deal, get rid of Beagle's deal, get rid of
and I believe because the NHL is a hard cap, I think they would have to do it before they could sign the other deal. So they would literally have 24 hours to get it done. And basically take the worst possible. Oh my god! It would just be it would be like literally Pettersson and Hughes just sitting in like an empty plot, like someone stole the house around them and all of their things. Like they would just like. There's definitely a cartoon that's done that before, where literally a thief just steals the entire house around the two people like sitting in the middle on the floor, and that's all they have left is just the floor. Like that's kind of what. Oh my god, that's kind of what we're looking at. I mean, yeah, like Jeff Ayette tweeted today, the Canucks have $23.5 million committed next year to Myers, Eriksson, Pearson, Beagle, Roussel, and Virtanen. At Evolving Hockey has this group worth a combined minus 6.7 GAR this year. I believe that's goals above replacement. They have $17 million remaining to sign Pettersson, Hughes, and fill 6 to 8 more roster spots. Disastrous.
That is.
Yep, that's correct. That's unfortunately all correct. This is a mess.
It's and like the whole Jim Benning press conference from a few weeks ago or months ago, however long it's been now. It's been memed to death, but he said it would be 2 years before the team was like competitive, going for the playoffs over and over again. So you think to yourself, if you know you need 2 more years to compete with the elite teams of the division, why are you signing a 28-year-old to a 2-year or 3-year deal? So he'll be 30 to 31 by the time the deal's over. Like, are you are you that invested in Tanner Pearson that you think in 3 years from now he's still going to be a top 6 winger for you at $3 million? Like,
Even if everything goes according to plan, you really don't think someone's going to come in and take his spot by that point? Like you
I
don't think Vasily Podkolzin is already going to be your number 2 in 3 years from now? Like, what are you doing?
I just like wonder because like the Canucks luck, like everyone kind of jokes like, you know, how lucky the Canucks are and whatever, or unlucky the Canucks are, right? But for Jim Benning and the way that he throws money around, you would think he believes that he is the luckiest man on the planet or something, because COVID hit his team in such a way that they eked their way into a playoffs that they were on the verge of losing. And then again, this year, it screwed his team so hard that he can now make the excuse of, oh, they didn't make playoffs this year because, as he said in his press conference, you know, people got sick in the beginning and it screwed up our training camp. They got sick towards the end and we couldn't mount the comeback. There's like COVID has given him so many excuses for him to explain away why the team he's iced is such dog shit.
As if he didn't have like 30,000 of them ready to go already. Like
yes,
they could have had a perfect year and he would have found some way to blame somebody else.
Yeah, he's used up so much luck through the last 365 days that it's baffling. He would think, oh, signing another 3-year deal to a bottom 6 aging player is going to work out finally, when it has not worked out once in 7 years. Eric Goodbranson, 3-year deal, traded away 1 year into it. Not even 1 year, like 3 months into his extension. For Tanner Pearson. Who else? Sam Gagner signed to a 3-year deal, traded after 1 year. Or sorry, not even traded. Put to the Utica Comets, or not the Utica Comets, the AHL.
The Marlies.
To play with the Marlies because they didn't want to separate him from his family or whatever.
I think he made it 2.5. I think he made it 2.5.
I think it was a year. I think he played 1 year.
I'll look that up.
And he was traded away.
I'll look it up.
After him, it's... oh God, who was it?
I mean, you can go down the list. I mean, there's so many of them. I mean, obviously Louis Eriksson you kind of throw in there. There's Jay Beagle. There's Antoine Roussel.
Yeah,
I mean,
Beagle, like not an NHL caliber player after. Well, I mean, he's pretty much not an NHL caliber player the minute they signed him. He can penalty kill, but I mean, you don't spend $4 million on someone to do that.
If any team, just about any team would be fine with it. Would be fine taking a Jay Beagle for about $1 million or $1.5 million. Like if that's the deal you're coming at them with, yeah, lots of teams would take a Jay Beagle. $3 million a season? Hell no, absolutely not. That's not happening.
But it's just like how do you operate a team for this long and just think that nothing's changed? You haven't learned a single goddamn thing. Like Sven Berchi is sitting on your taxi squad, or sorry, not your taxi squad, in your AHL squad. He can't be
not even your taxi squad.
Yeah. He costs so much you can't even bring him up to your taxi squad when your whole team is riddled with COVID because he costs too much, and he costs too much against a deal that you signed like a year before you decided he wasn't good enough. Michael Furlan, same thing. You signed him to a deal that was immediately awful because Michael Furlan basically said he's worried about concussions and the impact it's going to have on his daily life. And sure enough, he plays 17 games and it's over. Like, there's just
this is a team that has learned nothing. They've learned absolutely nothing.
No, that's what today was basically. It was just cementing the fact that we all know we already knew it anyway with the "we live day to day" comment in that miserable press conference that this team does not learn from their mistakes. They operate with goldfish brain. They do not remember anything they've done in the previous years. They've never learned from their mistakes. Tanner Pearson, like this has nothing to do with him as the player. Like if you get him on a cheap ticket, I'm fine with keeping him.
Go for it, dude.
Good for him. He's worked long enough in the NHL that he deserves like extensions like this. But from a process standpoint, it's just so deflating to see. Like it feels like I'm in 2018 or 2017 again when they're extending Gagner, when they're signing Roussel and Beagle back to back. Like it's so fucking frustrating. And like I was listening to radio on my way home. 650 is usually like a pretty positive station, and every single caller was just like, what are we doing? What is the team doing? How can they be making the same mistakes over and over again? And almost every single caller would have 10 seconds of their call time taken off because they'd add the caveat, I really like Tanner Pearson. He seems like a great guy. And under any circumstances, I would sign him, but not with the money that they currently have allocated, which gets me to the next segment of, Lachlan, do you believe the team is operating with some kind of knowledge that perhaps beyond Beagle, that maybe a Louis Eriksson is not coming back as well? Because that's the only thing I can rationalize in my brain as to why they would be so gung-ho to just sign these deals for next year without even having signed their coach or their goalie coach or their assistant coach.
But what would the incentive be for Louis Eriksson not to come back? Like, what incentive is there for him? It doesn't seem
there isn't, but I just mean in the sense like, do they know something we don't? Do they know something that we don't? And that's why they felt comfortable signing a Tanner Pearson to a 3-year deal, because they know, on top of Ferland like probably being done in the NHL, maybe Eriksson has been like, you fuck this season, like I'm not gonna do another year of this. I'm gonna retire at the end of this season, or maybe Beagle does the same, or you know what I mean? Like that's the only thing I can think of, is that they know like up to $10 million is coming off the cap due to LTIR or retirement or something. That's the only thing I can rationalize. And honestly, after having a crappy day like I did today, if I veer too heavily on the pessimism side and I don't stick to the thought that they know something I don't, then my brain will explode, because then it just doesn't make any sense. And we're back to square one of, this is just bad process. It's more of the same.
I mean, it is entirely possible that they know something you don't, that we don't. Maybe some players aren't coming back, beyond just the players that we already kind of have an idea may or may not be considering a retirement or that sort of thing. But like we've talked about lots of times in our very short run of episodes together, 30 episodes, we've been going at it for quite a bit now.
It feels like we've been doing this podcast for like a year and a half, and it's been like 3 months only.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of reps in. We've gotten a lot of reps. As we've well established, there's this thing the Canucks don't have, and it's called foresight. They don't have that.
Brains.
It's called brains, and it's called foresight. They have no foresight. They have some brain. They have no foresight. And
the foresight thing is amazing, considering it's, like we said, it's nearing 10 years of the same group. And the fact that no one's come into the organization and altered that mindset and said we should think ahead, goodness. I don't expect them to I don't expect there to be anything else. Like, I expect them to make no moves at the trade deadline now. Like, for sure. I'd be stunned if they actually move money out. Like, I keep hearing people say, oh, clearly they're going to move money out, right? I'm like, oh, yeah, totally. They're going to, they just like they were going to totally trade Tanner Pearson. Like, just like they were totally going to re-sign Jacob Markstrom and Tyler Toffoli and everyone else. Trade Dan Hamhuis for a pick. They were going to,
like,
they were going to do stuff for the deadline. They were going to.
They say it every year
for picks. Like, you know what?
They talk such a big game every single year and then don't do anything to back it up. And they always they literally try the whole we're being coy, or they're it sounds like they might be upping the trade value of somebody, and then oops, nope, they actually signed them. Like that. Oh, have just no clue what you're doing.
Everything they do is kind of like, it's like the most obvious thing. You know what I mean? It's like. What would an algorithm do based on generic hockey moves? You know what I mean? That's what the algorithm.
What would an algorithm do? But if it were always making the incorrect choice. It's
it's isn't allowed to learn.
It's it's like a chess robot, but it's like it moves it's moving like the horse. like in a straight line like a queen.
Yeah.
You're like, nope, you can't do
I
that.
tried teaching
Or like
you. You
like
can't
the
do
pawn,
that.
or like the pawn, they're like trying to move like in like
Yeah.
different diagonals and stuff. It's like, nope, you can't do that. And it just keeps making it's the robot arm from Iron Man. I think its name is Dummy. I think like Tony Stark's like robot arm that he keeps yelling at. They don't know what they don't have a plan. There's no succinct decision making going on. And it's completely going to cost them. Like, I'm already coming to terms with multiple things. Like, number one thing I've already come to terms with is the fact that as long as this management group is in charge, and maybe this sounds glib, maybe this is way too grim, but as long as they're here, I don't see this team ever winning a championship. Ever. Like, as long as they're here, they're cooked. They're not going anywhere. They might win a few playoff rounds here or there, but that's just the Calgary Flames. Like, do you really want that? Is that what you want? Do you really want to see them turn into a team that literally just fires coaches like a carousel every single year, thinking this will solve the problem? That'll get Gaudreau and Monahan to be first liners, even though they're not. Like, do you really want to see that here?
It's been 7 years of wheel spinning.
Yeah.
Like, how can it be? How has the bar been lowered this way?
The years they were tanking. They weren't tanking. They were trying to make the playoffs.
They were trying to
every year. They were just so bad that they tanked anyway. This is the stuff that baffles me.
That is the most frustrating thing, is when you hear people or read people being like, "Oh, they did a rebuild." It's like trading Burrows and Hansen for two prospects that contributed nothing to the organization isn't rebuilding.
Sure,
it's an attempt.
That shows a semblance of a rebuild, but it's not a full
of like what you would need to do. But that isn't like a rebuild would have been selling off everything you have for first round and second round picks. And when they did do this, they sold BX for a second. They traded it for older guys that would help them compete immediately. And the guys they identified, they traded for Lyndon Vay. A second round pick for Lyndon Vay.
They traded for Lyndon Vay? I thought he was UFA. Oh my god.
They traded for him. He was,
and that was year
one.
They
traded for him. And that was like 2015, 16 or something. Like,
that was year one. Jesus.
It's just so frustrating that, like you said, the fact that like Jim's being allowed to make these kinds of deals now kind of spells it out that he's going to be given another year to, see his vision. And I'm using the term vision as loosely as possible here, because it isn't a vision. It's just wheel spinning. It's a
kaleidoscope. He's looking into a kaleidoscope with, look at all the pretty colors.
It's like, hey, all these guys that I've signed to deals that are, over 27 years old, not a single one has worked out except for JT Miller. Why don't I double down and just try Tanner Pearson for another 3 years? He's had a really down year, but surely he'll bounce back. It always works out that way, right? It's so baffling that all you can do is just hope that change is on the way. It seems like it's going to be another year of pain, but you have to think I can tell you right now, there is zero chance this team is making playoffs next year. Not with what they have to do to rebuild their defense and still sign their star players. There's just no way they're a contender in either the next 2 to 3 years, unless Vasily Podkolzin comes in and he's actually like Ovechkin level, like contributor. Like, there's just no way. You're demanding so much of your young stars to carry the load of like the bodies they're going to have to sign for cheap to fill the gaps because they don't have the money.
I mean, can they even afford to sign the cheap bodies anymore? I don't think they can. Like, are you going to, like, how can you find even squeeze a minimum deal in there anywhere when you have to put in Pettersson and Hughes? Like, I think what you have is what you're already here and already stuck with Drancer had it perfectly today. He talked about, he made the joke of like, you can't what was it? You can't run out of time with the bad contracts, or run the clock out of the bad contracts.
If you keep
signing them. Yeah.
Because it's true.
Again, Yeah, what are you going to do? Like, and I've already, like, the other thing I was going to say is I've already come to terms with the fact that they're going to re-sign Brandon Sutter next year. Like, that's already going to happen. Like, I'm already like, yep, they're going to do that.
They're going to sign him in the next 3 days. They're going to give him a 5-year extension.
They're going to extend Brandon Sutter before they give Pettersson and Hughes their deals, because apparently they're, like, that's the whole other dynamic we can get into after, which is the fact of why on earth did you prioritize Tanner Pearson ahead of Hughes and Pettersson? Like, why would you prioritize them? Why would you prioritize Tanner Pearson? Like, again, this is being unfair to Tanner himself, because, again, nice guy, and I do think, and I'll say this.
No problem with Tanner Pearson. This is all issues with process, right?
I literally wrote an article last year about how great he was and why he had such a great breakout, breakout, first year with the Canucks,
a comeback season,
career high in points, and he, with games remaining, had the season continued as normal. He had a great year last year, and I think there is a world where this contract does pan out, but it's slim. It's very, very slim because of how much they signed him for and for how much term. But the fact of the matter is, they also have to deal with the fact that there are contracts that need to be tendered to Pettersson and Hughes, of course, but also in a different sense, Travis Green and Ian Clark don't have contracts yet, and you prioritize Tanner Pearson over them. Why? Why on earth would you prioritize a guy who's probably going to be on your third line, but within the next 2 years, ahead of your goddamn head coach or your goalie coach, who's literally worked his ass off to turn Jacob Markstrom into an elite goaltender and Thatcher Demko into one after? Why?
Which again cycles back to the whole why now? Why did Thatcher Demko need to be extended right now? Why did Tanner Pearson need to be extended right now? Like, they have tons of time.
And people are less mad about the Demko one because obviously Demko that contract sound and solid, and it makes sense.
The optics of it are you don't have your head coach signs or your goalie coach sign, but you sign the player first, like before the trade deadline, before you even know how the rest of the season's going to go. You had plenty of time to work this out. Same with the Pearson thing. That the team might come back in the next, month or so, play some meaningless games, and Tanner Pearson might never score again for all they know. And suddenly, this 3-year deal is immediately untradeable. It is a complete albatross. I think it probably is an albatross already, just because, knowing Canucks luck, there's no way this deal ages well. But it's like, why now? The trade deadline, you don't need to sign him before. Like, there was no impetus to do it. Maybe they were worried of the whole, like, we don't want the communication issues, like, messaging to, like, continue into next year. Like, we want to look like we're taking care of our players, because obviously Tanev, Stetcher, Toffoli all left under the impression that they weren't sure what the direction of the team was doing. This might have been let's try and save face and just jump and sign the 2 guys we can sign. But they still got Pettersson and Hughes to sign. And instead of working Demko and Pearson's deals around those two's giant extensions or bridge deals that they're going to need, they are now going to have to work those two's deals into their restricted cap, while factoring the fact that they need to re-sign like 14 players to field a competitive ice hockey team. It is like in any other market, if there was fans, they would be booing and demanding Benning to be fired. They would have been
fire Benning chants would be loud. I think honestly, I'm fascinated to see how game 1 of the home opener next year goes. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it's a loss. Like, even if it's a close loss, I wouldn't be surprised if that comes out like first game. Because people are mad now, and literally they've been cooped up inside for the last
so they're gonna want good hockey.
Over a year, they're gonna want good hockey. And they're going to have all the pent-up anger from what they've seen and what the team has gotten away with, I use in air quotes, while they're gone. Because in a way, almost having fans is a bit of a... Fans are keeping you in check by being in the building. They're kind of your, they're your, like, let's see the damage here. They're kind of there to, like, inspect and make sure things are going well. They keep you honest to a sense, but when they're not there, it's very easy to do things like this because suddenly you don't see those people. You don't see anybody to get mad at, for getting mad at you.
Yeah, like during that losing streak in February, like there's no way they're coming away unscathed. There's just no way.
They're gone. They're fired.
They're completely gone because fans would go nuts and Aquilini reacts on, I guess, on fan pressure. I don't know if you saw this, but at one point, Aquilini's Twitter, I don't know if it's still there, but like moments after they announced the Pearson extension, one of Aquilini's most recent likes was like a random Tanner Pearson fact from Jeff Patterson. It was like how many games he played and how many total points he's had. And as we know, he had the tweet about Demko contributing unreal goaltending like a week before his extension. Like, his hands are on the wheel, and if fans are in the stands booing the product on the ice that technically he has a hand on the wheel of creating, and Benning is right next to him who has his two hands on the wheel, you know Aquilini isn't going to be like, oh, well, I'm going to take my hands off and that'll solve the problem. He's going to take the other guy's hands off because he thinks he's the problem. So this is all bad. The process is awful. I am miserable and looking forward to nothing anymore.
Nothing anymore, Jesus.
There's AHL hockey tomorrow. That's pretty neat.
There is AHL hockey tomorrow. You're back. You finally get to cover a game. I will also say, just on that whole why now thing, like, as well, and you and I talked about this in the pre-show, now there's the no trade clause now. There's the no trade clause in that first year, which is purposely I believe was purposely thrown in there so he can't get exposed in the expansion draft. So they now have to protect him, which, once again, begs the question of, hey, why didn't you wait until after the expansion draft to sign him? That way he's not on your roster and you technically don't have to protect him. Why is he there? As far as I know, they could have met the requirements for players without it. And even then, hey, you know what else is an option? You could wait until the end, take advantage of the teams that are smack up against that extension, don't want to lose guys for nothing, and pick up somebody
a top
for
4D
cheap.
Or something for nothing.
Pick up like
another Nate
Schmidt. Like, again, we literally, on the very last episode, we talked about how Jim Benning makes us mad because every now and then we see a sort of a glimpse of, oh, this guy kind of maybe knows what he's doing. Yeah. And then he does something like this.
Yeah, like I
where
said,
it's
all
like,
the moves
there's no point.
All the moves that he makes are just like shit that is completely on the nose. You know what I mean? It's stuff you would completely expect, and I think it's Stockholm syndrome now, where Canucks fans and you and I are telling ourselves like, oh, it's going to lead to something more complex. He's going to take advantage of teams that are up against it for the expansion draft. And it's like, no, he's just going to re-sign everyone he needs to. And then anyone who he can't keep, he's going to let it walk away for free because he can't multitask. There's not enough people in the front office to manage multiple negotiations at one time. It's just laser focused. We're going to sign Demko. Okay, done. Next guy, let's get Pearson. Okay, done. Don't even shop him. Don't even see what we can get on the open market. It's just, this is our guy. Laser focus. Don't even look at comparables or, no sense of the timeline. Let's say 1 week, it's 2 years until we're ready to compete. And then the next day we're signing guys to 5-year deals. Like,
constantly runs their own assets into the ground. Like, they have opportunities to trade guys for actually decent returns, and they just don't, even though they should, even though every person with the semblance of, like, foresight will tell you, hey, trade them now while you still can, and they just don't, because they're like, nope, they're the future, even though they're old, and gonna get now. Worse. Like, this is, they do this every single time. And literally, like, even this year, people have been like with the whole tweets of people going like, well, clearly they must be moving out cap room. Like, clearly they're going to make moves and, like, create space and stuff. I'm like, no, they're not. No, they're not. They're just going to sit there. They're going to sit there and do nothing. Of course they're not going to do anything.
They're going to sit and let problems solve themselves. They had such a freebie when Michael Furland said he wasn't coming back. and was going to start the season on LTIR, because I'm pretty sure if that didn't happen, they were over the cap $3.5 million because of the signing of Braden Holtby and Schmidt. Yeah, without Ferland going on LTI, they're fucked. So I can only guarantee that heading into next season, they're going to sign over the dollar amount, and they're going to hope that a couple guys are just going to be like volunteer themselves to be like, oh, we can't play, bud. That's the MO of this organization, is just like let problems solve themselves for them, so they don't have to be creative or think or do things that they might think are old white hockey man like or some shit. Like it's baffling.
It's baffling, especially because like seriously, when was the last time Jim Benning sold a player, an asset, a declining asset, and got returned back on them? I think it was Thomas Vanek. I think that's the last time mid-season that he's made that kind of a move, where he sold somebody that was like an older player with the explicit purpose of, well, they're a UFA next year, we're going to move them for some assets while we still can. I think that's the last one, because every other year they say they're going to do something like that and don't. Maybe I think they might have moved Michael Del Zotto, I think, but I think even that was the same year.
He was moved for a seventh, and that's it.
Look at every single player this team has had and just ran their value into the ground completely. Yeah. Sven Berchi is sitting in the AHL, can't get out.
Publicly say it out loud. Yeah, but then they do this thing where they go publicly and say like, "Oh, we tried to trade him and no one wants him." So then his value is completely tanked. There's no tact. There's no, people are interested. Trust me, it's just straight up on his face. Like, we got nothing. This guy is worthless to us, and every other team in the league, including AHL teams, think he's worthless. But we tried. Like, that's the mentality. It's like, well, we tried. I don't know what to tell you.
And maybe you should, maybe you should ask yourself the question, hey, why doesn't anybody want any of your players, huh?
Yeah,
why is that? Where is your problem? Where are you failing to see the disconnect here? If everyone else doesn't want your players, it's probably because they're not that good and not worth the amount you gave them. And maybe you should stop doing that. Like, Ryan Spooner's still sitting on buyout. Like, they have Ryan Spooner sitting on a buyout deal right now. I mean, Erickson, sick. Like, technically, I guess it's $4 million, but if he came into the NHL, it's $6 million. Jake Virtanen's on a 2-year contract. It's a very contract.
You can buy it out.
You can't get rid of him, but you can't get rid of him.
4 months after signing.
It's a 2-year contract. Yeah. It's a 2-year contract that, in real world money, he's only making $2.5 million. Like, that should not be
no.
That should not be the unmovable contract that it is. Under no circumstances should that be that impossible to get rid of. But it is, because you gave it to a player who no one wants.
Because you publicly sold and gave up on the player in the most obvious public way imaginable.
That's right.
So that
you gave up on them and then signed them anyway.
And then signed their replacement, who's literally the exact same player with the exact same flaws, who is most likely going to go down for the exact same reasons. Like, they replaced Berchi with literally Sven Berchi again in Michael Ferland to a shittier contract that was uninsurable because of his concussion issues. Like, there's just there's no logic. There's just no brains. Anyway,
Michael Ferland started that season on the first line because they thought he was a first line player. And we can go into we could go into a whole other tangent about how the Canucks constantly sign players for roles that they are not equipped to do.
Yeah,
we've talked about it at length, that they don't seem to actually understand how people work, and they just think they're robots who can do whatever you programmed them to do.
Yeah, not quite how it works.
Michael Ferland, even though he had success in Carolina as a third liner, they were like, this is a first line left winger, and he's going to be Pettersson and Besser's winger. And until Travis Green shut that down, it was like, nope, okay, this is JT Miller's spot now. And that worked out. The way I think a lot of us thought it would, which is better, much better. And that, again, that's not really a shot at Michael Ferland. They put him in the role where he wasn't going to succeed.
Yeah.
And with Tanner Pearson, you're looking at a scenario where, yes, he's doing all right. He's done all right on the second line, but the way that the Canucks have, he hasn't done much. This year has been a bit of has definitely sucked, and
but it won't be easier next year either.
No, I mean, I will say to a certain extent, I'm willing to give certain players like a mulligan on this year for just how weird it is. Like and I mean that for players throughout the rest of the league. Like there are a lot of players who are having just weird years stats wise. Like Ovi had a really tough start to the year. Because Zibanejad had a really tough start to the year. I'm willing to forgive stat line. I'm willing to forgive the stat line a little bit, but it still shows the flaw in where the Canucks think and how the Canucks think about things, how they constantly give out these ridiculous contracts to players who are at their lowest value and give them top dollar. It almost seems like there's no negotiation going on.
It's we said it like with the Tyler Myers thing. It's just them bidding against themselves. Like who? Yeah. I bet if you went to market right now and said to all 30 teams, actually, no, I guess 31, because I bet Seattle can technically.
Seattle will be. Seattle, I think,
offer him a contract too.
Technically, yeah,
but they would. Yeah. I bet if you said, hey, do you want to take this 3-year, $3.25 million contract for Tanner Pearson on your second line, possibly third line? No one's going to say that. They're gonna be like, no, it's a flat cap environment. Like we don't have the space for that.
In the middle of a pandemic.
In this economy,
our owners lost a bunch of money this year from all their things. Although actually Forbes might argue against that. I do believe that they added more billionaires to the list in the last. I don't know if you saw that. There's like the billionaires list. Apparently they added more people. That would have been something I'm sure we'd have talked about on this show. The moral of this story, kids, is eat the rich. No, I'm just kidding.
That is the moral, yeah.
But in all seriousness, like no, Tanner Pearson was not going to get $3.25 million from any other team in the league. No, coming into the if he had made it to free agency,
it is the Canucks setting the market once again for no one.
For no one, like they just like
every deal that's going to get signed from here on is going to just make the Canucks look like complete idiots. They're going to look like buffoons. Like other teams are going to trade, Mike Hoffman or Taylor Hall. They're going to retain dollars so that better teams can acquire these players at a fraction of what Tanner Pearson's making, and everyone in the market is going to be pulling their hair out because they're going to be like, why didn't the Canucks have the sense to do something like this? It's frustrating, man.
Patrick Johnson tweeted out today that Corey Perry on the Canadiens has more goals than Tanner Pearson. Tanner Pearson has 6 goals this year. Corey Perry has 9, and Corey Perry is making $750,000.
Radical.
Which is
very cool.
Which is this is actually very interesting. That is less than $3.25 million per season. Not a lot of people know that. That's less. That's less money.
TIL.
Seriously, TIL. I just we could talk about this for hours. Just
I don't even think we should, because it's just
the whole mess is like, I mean,
it's a mess. Everyone knows it's a mess.
It's too depressing.
It's misery. It's frustrating, and the sad part is there's still 3 days to 4 days left to the trade deadline. When at this, like, the Tanner Pearson extension also says to me, the team is not selling. They are fully prepared for the return to play for their team to try and gun for playoffs, even though they are like 9 points out of it, basically, with games. Actually, I guess they're not games in hand anymore, but with a team that is like COVID rattled, basically, and going to be struggling to recover. Or at the very least, they think that if they run it back next year with the exact same roster, they'll do way better. They think they'll do a lot better next season for some reason. Totally. That's totally what'll happen.
Like that's kind of what it seems like. 'Cause I think, like, I hesitate to say this, but I'm like, they can't actually think they can make the playoffs this year, do they? Like, there's no way. There's no way they actually think they could make it in, do they? I would be. Well, here's the thing. Jim Benning is going to talk tomorrow morning, I believe, about. I think the first half of their press conference is going to be with the team doctor talking about COVID, and the public and like talking about like the public stuff and everything. Which okay, with all the stuff, the garbage that's gone on today, good on them for being public about what's going on with their players with COVID wise. That is good. Not
Sure,
just
yeah.
not from a hockey,
That's
not
good.
even from a hockey standpoint. That's good from a public health standpoint. That they're going to actually discuss, hey, this is what's going on with these players, and this is why everyone should stay inside and be careful.
It's
That's good, and they didn't necessarily need to do that. That's a good thing.
it's total burying the lead again by the Canucks, where they
A little
simultaneously
bit.
have a press conference detailing the biggest issue on the team, which is the COVID situation. But also, oh, here's this contract extension we signed that probably could have waited for like 6 months. But yeah, we're going to talk about both at the same time. So then
I mean,
all these poor media guys are going to have to pick and choose between talking about the COVID situation and the team's recovery or this deal that makes zero sense in the grand picture of things.
So the one thing, yes. So the one thing I do think, okay, they might not have to pick. They might not have to pick, which is good. 'Cause I did think they said the first half of the press conference is going to be with him and the doctor, and then the next half will be just Jim. So they will,
Okay.
I think, technically get to ask both. But you are correct. This is burying the lead a little bit, especially like I don't think we didn't notice that they slid the Tanner Pearson extension in with the same post as the Thatcher Demko one because they knew everyone would like the Demko one.
Yeah.
They knew no one would like the Tanner Pearson one. They know what they're doing. They know they're making everyone mad. And everyone thinks they're stupid. But like I'm going to be stunned. Like, it'll be stunning tomorrow if he, like, comes out and is like, oh, yeah, we're going to make the playoffs this year. We're going to do great. And then, and then
we're going to hear a lot of, it'll be tough, but we're going to try our hardest to make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be really fascinating. Like, again, Daniel Wagner, pass it to Bliss. He's been killing it of late. He was great in the last press conference. I'm already prepping for, like, the end of season press conference when they don't make the playoffs. After Jim Benning says in this one they're gonna make the playoffs, and either Daniel or Drancer or Jeff or J Pat, one of them is going to be like, "Hey, remember like a month ago? Hey, like remember like 3 weeks ago, and you said they were gonna make the playoffs and they didn't? How come? What happened?" And they're gonna have to make excuses for that again.
So speaking of end of season, I guess we'll close on this little thought I had while actually driving home. In regards to just like the body of work of this regime, let's say in 2 years from now, the Benning and Weisbrod regime finally comes to an end. They miss playoffs in both the next 2 years, and we look back on a 9 to 10 year or 10 season body of work where they've drafted very well, acquired a lot of very good young talent, but have bungled the cap so badly with old players that declined nearly immediately upon signing the extensions they were signed to. What would you say? Like, how would you summarize or categorize this last 10-year period? Like, what's the big takeaway? Is it the drafting, or is it the drafting and the success of starting fresh, or is it the unfulfilled pain of having drafted such elite talents in Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes, but doing nothing with it? What would be the grand takeaway for you?
The grand takeaway for me, I think, would be I don't know how to put this. I don't think there's ever been a point in my personal career, like, or lifetime watching the Canucks, where I've ever been more concerned that I'm going to see a group walk out with nothing. Like, I'm going to see a core in an era just walk out empty-handed with absolutely no, like, maybe a division title in there somewhere, but other than that, nothing. Like, when the Canucks were at their best, in the Luongo Sedin era, when they were playing at their absolute best, there was never really a point where I wasn't like, they could win the they won't win the Stanley Cup. Like, every year, even at the end, even going into the John Tortorella year, there was still a part of me and I think a lot of people
were like, this is what they need, is a coaching change. this might be exactly what they need to just reinvigorate the group and go for that final run. Because even in
Yes.
2011, 2012, I think people were like, man, they blew it in game 7, but there's just no way they come back next year with the same group and don't blow people away. And they came back and they fucking won a President's title.
Again,
like,
2 years in a row.
2 years in a row. Like,
and then got their asses handed to them by the Kings. But even then, like, even after they lose that, it's literally like the Kings want to win the cup, and everyone in Vancouver is like, oh, if they just get past the Kings, they'd win. So next year is their year, and then so on and so on and so on. And that's its own other sort of like anxiety as a fan for sure. But at least there's expectations. At least there's actually an expectation of a culture of winning, and a culture of winning. Whereas this year, like, I've really gotten to this point where I'm just like, I'm already just looking like 5 or 6 years down the road, or maybe, I guess more probably, like maybe closer to like 8 years down the road, where like Pettersson and Hughes and Besser and Horvat are all on different teams. They're all playing for other teams. And because they had to dismantle the core, because they didn't win anything, because they never got anywhere, and the players got tired of losing and got tired of being in a losing culture. The same way, in a way like Buffalo.
Calgary's at right now, too. Like, kind of like the Calgary model, like where
Much
they
closer,
had like this young group that was really kind of looking like they were gonna eclipse the hump. They were gonna really start to do something, but they never rounded it. They kind of just kept spinning their legs, couldn't quite get over the hump, and then 5-6 years later, they had to blow it up. I mean, the Flames are awful right now, and it's going to be they're going to blow it up. Any new GM is going to have to torch that entire place, no pun intended.
Yeah. And even the Flames, I think won a division title. Like, I think they won the Pacific a couple years ago, and then just happened to run into...
That was last year, was it not? They were the best team in the division. They're the best team
2 years ago. 2 years ago, because it was Cale Makar came in for the playoffs before his rookie year, and they were amazing. And the Avalanche got red hot, and that's when the Avalanche really started going on their uptick. Yeah. So they at least they might have even had the best record in the West, I think. The Flames did, I think. Or maybe they were like one behind Nashville, I think, possibly. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They won a division, which the Canucks don't have. The Canucks have not won a division title. They can't say they have. And I look at them, I think the Islanders before Lou Lamoriello, like the John Tavares era for the Islanders is another good comparable here to a certain extent. Where it's just you see the potential. You see what's possible if the right person is there to make the pieces fit. And they find the pieces that fit. Yeah. Right now, until something changes upstairs, I don't see a scenario anymore where they can go and win that cup, where they can go and win a Stanley Cup. I just see Calgary and New York in front of me. And that's scary as hell. Because imagine we put in this 7 years already. We get another, 15? Like, we get up to, 15 after,
15 just Patterson to get competitive again?
15 to get to hell. Or just, they do get into, some playoff games, but they never, make it out of, round 1 or 2 because it's the same management group just hoping things are going to fix themselves. And just hoping that Pettersson and Hughes and Demko will bail them out and win something that way. Yeah. I just see darkness right now. All I can see is the writing on the wall being a Canucks fan. I don't know what about you.
That's kind of where I'm at. Is we're going to be looking back, and like you said, the Sedin era when they were at their peak, you kind of just had a feeling they were going to make it work and find success no matter what, because the people that were in charge managed to find gold whenever they needed to find gold. This group, because it's the same problems year in, year out for close to 10 years, we're going to be looking back if they don't make the playoffs or round that hump and actually become something. It's just going to be a fan base that is completely apathetic and just dealing with Stockholm syndrome, having looked at Elias Pettersson turn 25 or 26 with just that one series, that playoff bubble series, and that's it. And that's unacceptable. You can't get star talent like this in like 5th overall and do nothing with it. That's just it's not fair to the players. It's not fair to the fan base that have obviously, as we can see through Canucks Twitter alone, just like how passionate people are to see a team that can win. And that is like just this Pearson deal, although Pearson isn't the player that is the reason why these concerns are coming up. It's the process behind it that cause us to be just so worried for the future and how we're going to be looking back on just a decade of apathy and misery. It's a shame, man. I'm not looking forward to the next 2 seasons, and that's almost like why I'm so bummed that this Pearson extension happened now, because now we have the entire summer, the next 7 months basically, of looking at Cap Friendly's page and seeing that $17 million only of cap space and trying to figure out how you build a cup contender that can actually make the playoffs with that amount of money, including an expansion draft to Seattle in that time. That is a recipe for disaster. And given how bad BC is handling this COVID epidemic or pandemic and how slow they are at getting people vaccinated, I don't know if I can do another summer cooped up inside watching miserable Canucks news unfold. I can't do it.
I don't think most of us can. And I will add, just to add to the sadness here. Apparently, according to Patrick Johnston, somebody made the joke in his when he was talking about Travis Green earlier today. Like, when does Seattle announce Travis Green's contract, you think? Patrick Johnston said June 2nd, which implies that his contract is expiring June 1st, a month before you have the free agency period starts. Or, well, I guess more than that, technically.
Very good. 30 days, yeah.
Because it's which is, like...
Very good.
Sure. Okay. Like, that would be, just another, just icing on the cake, wouldn't it? And then I guess if there's one last thing we should do, we might have to do here, because this is the show where we get sad a little bit, is, hey, look, it's the draft lottery simulator. Let's sim this real quick and see if they win. Nope, 9th.
Oh, not even close. That is
9th again. Ooh, 10th.
Oh, we dropped. Hey. Perfect.
Oh, we dropped one spot. Hey.
Well, it's looking good for Buffalo.
9. A lot of Seattle's won a couple
first overall would actually be really rad.
I think I've drawn Seattle on this already, like, twice. Nope, nothing. Okay, well, that's a bummer.
Keep running the sim. I'll do our little closer here.
Okay.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in to another episode, our first emergency CreaseCast episode, which is really bizarre considering there's been a lot of things actually worth having emergency episodes about.
Oh, I got a second overall, and behind Seattle. behind Seattle. That'd be so sad, though, if they trade.
Okay, what if the Canucks get first overall and they trade down to second overall to Seattle so that they take Braden Holtby?
That's not... Well...
They give him first...
I guess in this draft, maybe. I guess maybe in this draft, that'd be kind of worth it. Like, this draft is such a crapshoot. Yeah. It really could... It honestly might be that worth it, but I'd have to see. Anyways, folks, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to rate, like, and subscribe to us on your favorite podcasting platform. Check out our Patreon, where we have $1 and $5 tiers. We were going to do an Off the Post episode tonight instead, but we figured it was way more appropriate to do an emergency episode for the mass public because, oh boy, the Tanner Pearson news drew some reactions, as you can tell by the previous hour and a bit. Check out our YouTube channel as well. You can rate, like, and subscribe to that as well. Lachlan posts full videos of that, and he's been breaking them down into smaller clips so that people won't complain in our internet comments. Thanks for watching. Hey, the fans can ask what they want for.
This is true. Thanks for listening as well. Lachlan, where can the fine folks find you?
You can find me at Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Lach and the Crease, and you can also find my my work at lachandthecrease.com, where I post the North Division Power Rankings every single Sunday, except for this last week and maybe this week, because of, again, this is just due to the Canucks being out with COVID. Didn't think it was great to do the funny article when it's not really a good time to be funny. Maybe that'll come back for this week if people just need a laugh. I don't know. And as well, just to let everybody know, we might have a slight schedule change just for this week, because Cody is covering the Comets game tomorrow night, and since there is no Canucks games to really talk about, it would be silly for me to just do a show on my own. So we'll probably record our next regular episode on Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, probably. And you can also find me, and you can also find the show as well on our Instagram at the CreaseCast and on Facebook at CreaseCast. Cody, where can they find you?
Y'all folks can find me at Cody Sievertson on Twitter. My game recaps are on thecometsharvest.com. Sorry guys. That's all I can say.
But guys, stay inside. There's
wear masks.
Really bad variant going around. Please be safe.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll try it. I don't know. We'll find some fun things to do this week. I don't know. We'll find some good stuff for you. Until then, take care.
For you guys, we'll
take care
try.
of each other. Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.